Hi everyone and welcome back to Learnosity's webinar series. Thanks for joining us for our first long-term support webinar of 2020. My name is Michael Sharman. I'm the Director of Product for Learnosity based in our Sydney office. First, we're just going to go through some quick housekeeping. You're on mute, but if you do have any questions throughout the webinar, you can ask them in the control panel. A member of the team will respond to any questions you have via email after the webinar. You can also log a ticket through our support portal at help.learnosity.com with any follow-up questions or comments that you might have. And anyone who's registered for this webinar will be sent the recording this week. Just a few things that we're going to go over today. We're going to be looking at all the features from our latest long-term support release, and that went out 26th of February this year. Briefly, let's go through what we did release across assessment, authoring, and analytics. Our math question generator has arrived at last, and that promises to make life a lot easier for our math authors. We're improving how feedback is given with our out-of-the-box distractor rationale display. We have support for single-page applications that has increased. We've also added some support for multiple assessment instances on the one page. And as usual, we have some accessibility enhancements. For the authoring team, we have revamped our author site. This has improved support for content workflow and access control, better accessible color contrast, those sorts of things. We also have a new integration with academic benchmarks, and this will simplify the process of aligning your content with prescribed state standards. Our publishing workflow that we've released should also help make content collaboration a more seamless process. We've given authors the option to restrict the maximum number of responses that students can select for multiple choice questions. And we've also added an extra layer of security to the author site by giving users the option to enable two-factor authentication upon login. And finally, in analytics, we released a response analysis report, and this allows educators to identify specific student misconceptions at a simple glance in order to better address the student needs. Okay, so first let's take a look at the assessment release in some more detail. The math question generator is a powerful authoring interface that math content creators gives them the ability to automatically generate multiple variations of a problem using variables. The math question generator also auto-computes the correct solutions, the correct responses, and this means that math question generator has the potential really to reduce the workload for math authors by taking care of most of the more repetitive aspects of content creation. And this should make the whole process of generating math questions faster and easier. Let's take a quick look at a demo. Okay, so we are in the typical view you might see for our authoring API. I'm going to go down to Math, and you will see down the bottom here we have a new template called Math Question Generator. I'm going to go into here. Now underneath is some of the things that you might ordinarily expect. You can change the dimensions of the response container and the keypad and things like that. However, I'm going to go into the main area, which is this wizard workflow that we've got for creating your math question generator question. Okay, the first thing you need to do is set up some parameters or some variables. Now, by default, we name the parameter for you, but you can update that to be whatever you like. And you have two value types here, a list or a range. And by default, we just go 1 through 5. I might just say 2, 3, 5. I can add a new parameter, automatically gives me B. I can leave that as it is, and I might choose a range here. And I might say I want 1 through 5 with a step of 1. I could do 1 through 10 with a step of 2, those sorts of things if I only wanted odd numbers. And what I do there, I move to the next step. Now what I do is create an expression. So what is it that I actually want to test my students' knowledge of. Now in here I'm going to do something very, very basic. I'm just going to do A times B, something very, 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 very simple. Okay, but you could do all sorts of algebraic equations in here if you wanted to. Okay, down the bottom I ask the actual problem. So I say calculate the following. Okay, and I have a use expression button that puts in what I entered above, and then I have my response box. Okay, now we hit generate, and what's happening is we are automatically calculating all the possible permutations for this math question type. Now I'm just going to choose the evaluated scoring format here. I could choose scientific, and this you can get some more options here again if you are doing some more complex types. Okay, I'm just going to leave this as 1 point for the question. When I move along, I'm going to generate now, and I see all the permutations here. Okay, so 2 times 5 is going to equal 10, 4 times 5 equals 20. So this is everything that's been automatically generated for you. Now, if there are things that are very, very simple I want to remove, for example, 1 and 2 is too simple, or 1 and 4 is too simple, I can highlight anything that I want and remove them. And then once I apply that, I'm done. On the right hand side is the preview from the student perspective. So I have the keypad there. If I want to simplify the keypad, I can remove some of these groups. Okay, and I can just put in 10, and I can see that was correct. As I toggle through, let me see another random row. 4 times 5, okay, I'll put in 20. Okay, I can see it was correct. And again, I can keep going to go through this list. 2 times 3, 6, etc. Next up is displaying distractor rationale. And this is a feature we've gotten a lot of requests from over the years from different customers. And what distractor rationale display allows is for educators to share immediate feedback with learners specific to their response. Now, while we've always had the ability to author distractor rationale, this new feature provides out-of-the-box rendering to end users. Let's have a quick look at a demo. So what I have here is a question, and now there are different ways to configure the display of distractor rationale. I can do it when the attempt is incorrect. We can do it when it's correct. There's all sorts of flexibility you can do here. So if I choose an option and check the answer, I can see that I got it wrong. Now what happens is we have a global distractor rationale shown here, and we have one specific to the response. In this case, we put enumeration in to tie in the exact feedback to the option that was chosen. If I choose something different, I get a different distractor specific to the response displayed. And once I finally choose the correct answer, I happen to get a correct distractor rationale display here if it has been authored. Single page applications are very much a modern form of web development. We've added some flexibility in the assessment API to cover more scenarios here. Now this is whether you're in a single page application or in a traditional web page. But there are 2 things we've added here. Firstly, you can now initialize multiple assessment instances to run side by side, so multiple on the same page at the same time. And for the more technically minded, you can also reset or destroy assessment instances at any time. And this includes before the initialization has actually completed. We won't go into a demo here on that one. You can reach out to support if you have any more questions. As is always, we have some accessibility enhancements around our assessment stack. And this time we have the ability to customize ARIA labels for the math and closed question type input fields. That's the response containers that students enter their responses into. And we also have the ability to override labels for all hard-coded ARIA throughout the assessment API. And we also have some more improved keyboard navigation across question types. Next up, let's take a look at some of the authoring features. Firstly, we've revamped our author site in order to deliver better support for those with larger publishing teams. Some features include user permission groups and content workflows. You can set up users who should have a filtered set of access to content, or you might want to restrict their access to features. So for instance, you might want to filter content to a specific domain to group subject matter experts together. Also, you might want to restrict access to certain features that you don't want to use in your product. And you can also set up groups of users who are content editors and groups of users who are content publishers. There are all sorts of things you can do with permission groups and workflow. The new academic benchmarks standard integration. This makes it much easier to align your content with defined educational standards. Your content creators can now search for items as well as tag new items based on the academic benchmarks maintained standards. Now, this integration is thanks to our partnership with Certica. So to access the standards browser, you do need a separate license with them. Let's take a quick demo to see what this looks like. If you do have a license to use academic benchmarks and you can enter your credentials into Learnosity console, you can then configure the authoring API to show our standards browser. Now I'm on the list view here of items, and if I want to filter content, I can open up the standards browser, choose my authority and my subject, move along, choose a grade, just browse as you would ordinarily do through the standards browser. Once you're done, you can run a search, and in this case I can see that I've only got one item returned for that. Now if I go in and have a look at that item, there is a standards option here as well. Now what I can do here, I can see there are actually two standards already applied to this, but as you would expect, you can link new standards by searching across your authority, your publication. Okay, in this case we're sticking with ELA, and you can continue to browse down and choose new standards to apply. We spoke about this before when talking about the new author site. However, this feature is also available if you're embedding our author API within your own platform. Workflow allows you to make content collaboration a smoother process. Each author can complete their own part of the publishing journey and then change the appropriate state or status of an item, such as draft or review, through to blocked and approved, for a more fluid review process. Having a look at a bit of a demonstration here, you can see I'm logged into the Learnosity website. Again, you can use Workflow if you are embedding the API directly. In this instance, I've actually opened up an item, and I'm logged in as a person who only has a content reviewer permission group, a set of permissions for content. If I look through details, I can see that I can't edit any of these things. I can't add any tags. All I can do is review the item. But what I can do is I can change the workflow state. It's currently in review, and I'm going to send it through to be approved because hypothetically, in this instance, I am a content reviewer. So I apply that, save that is the only thing I can do to that item, and I'm now done. We also have more control over multiple choice questions. So here's another often requested improvement from our customers. So authors now have the option to restrict the number of possible answers a student can select when answering a multiple choice question. That is a multiple choice question that can have checkboxes instead of radio buttons, so more than one correct answer. This has the benefit of preventing students from selecting additional responses if they're unsure, and just overall providing assistance in answering the question. Our author site users can now also activate an extra layer of security for content within their item banks. Two-factor authentication, or 2FA, prevents malicious people from breaking in by simply guessing or brute forcing a user's credentials. So now logging in with 2FA requires that you have both the user's credentials, their username and password, and a one-off code that is sent to their mobile device. If you're an existing customer interested in enabling 2FA, reach out to support or your customer success manager for more information. And now we have just one analytics release, one more in this webinar before we come to a close. So last but definitely not least, we have the response analysis report. A lot of our customers again have been asking for this one over the years, and this out-of-the-box report lets teachers view a summary of students' responses to an activity at a glance, so they can quickly identify common misconceptions and take steps to address needs at an individual or a group level. Let's have a quick look at a demo. So what we have here is a cohort of students. Down the left-hand side, you can see their names. And what we're doing is we're seeing here a 10-item test, all the same test students have taken, and each column represents an item. Now, you can see, for example, the first student, what they chose for item 1, item 2, item 3, etc. You can see on item 9 that the first student didn't attempt. Okay, you can also click into each column header to see the actual preview of the question and the response that the student chose. You can see the highlighted rows on the left-hand side, the students who got this question correct, and you can cycle through each item here. So you can see that there are 6 students who got this correct. Okay, here you can see that there are 3 students who got this one wrong. 2 of them chose A. That might be something you want to follow them up with directly, etc. You can sort as you might expect through the lowest points for this assessment and the highest points for this assessment. You can also see question types that aren't the usual multiple choice. So in this instance we have a plain text question type. In this instance we have a multi-part item. So we have a multiple choice and a graph plotting. Quite a powerful report. And that concludes our general overview of the latest long-term support release for 2020. That's 2020.1.LTS. As usual, thanks to everyone at Learnosity who's been involved in this release, from the developers through to support customer success. Everybody is involved, and it's always a privilege to present what we've been doing. Of course, we're already working on our next long-term support release, 2020.2, and this will be available in early July this year. So stay tuned for more features until then. Thanks for attending today, and once again, if you have any questions, please log them at help.learnosity.com, and if you've already asked a question, we'll follow up via email shortly. Thanks again, looking forward to hearing from you.